Immediately, the first thing we do is we try to abort what God was trying to birth. We're going to be uncommon, unshaken, and unapologetic. My fear, though, is that sports have become an idle lost mission field, which that's want to go on missions trips. Forget that the moment you walk out of the church on a Sunday, the missions trip has begun. What's going on, guys? I want to bring you guys to another episode where we're just going to have real conversation. We're just going to talk. We're going to open up topics, and we're just going to see where the Lord leads us. Today I want to talk about sports and kind of what sports has taught me through my life. I used to play baseball. I played a little bit of high school baseball. Signed to a college, and it's a whole other story for another time. But yeah, sports has taught me a lot. The process of playing sports, what it takes to get good, and then also the preparation of what it takes to get prepared for an actual game. There's so many different parts of the process, right, of building up your body, doing all of the little things in order to find yourself to be successful, and how working out will actually make you better at your sport, or training your body in specific ways will make you better at your sport, but then also learning the skills. Like, your raw athleticism alone is only going to take you but so far, but when you build up the necessary skills in your life, you're going to go a whole lot further. And I felt that kind of parallels a lot with our faith, like our life journey, our walk with the Lord. Like, yes, we can know all the scriptures, we can have all of the nice things, we can have every Bible study gathered, we can go to seminary, we can do all those things, but if we don't have all of the necessary elements put together, we don't go through all of the right training, if we don't do all of the little things, and we don't allow it to actually change who we are, well then, what it was just knowledge to have. It was just so you could say you played in the game. And that's the biggest thing, that after playing, I wish I could kind of go back sometimes when I was playing sports and realize how important those little things were, and how I used to get so frustrated with having to do things that I was like, this is pointless, this is boring, I don't want to do this. But in reality, those are the things that would have taken me further. They would have maybe been more beneficial to me in my walk. So I'm trying to incorporate and learn from things of the past, right? Because I believe that the Lord allows us to go through different seasons and different processes, and there's things that we're supposed to be learning from them, that I didn't just play sports and go through what I went through while playing to just have it happen. Like, there was principles and things that truthfully kind of helped me, right, my faith kind of get started or kind of get launched, because it was through disciplines. Like, if I could be diligent enough to continue to show up every day for baseball practice, and want to do this at practice, and want to run, and I started really understanding, like, pushing my body to its limits, then it was kind of the same way with, for me, how I equated, like, crucifying my flesh. That I was going to have to be okay with putting myself and putting my body through these painful moments, these things that I really didn't want to do, but I knew I had to do. And that's kind of where it took me. So I kind of had my sports and my faith kind of like bouncing between each other. My biggest mistake, though, was that I lived double lives. And I didn't realize how parallel they really were to each other, how I could have learned so much from my spiritual life and my walk with the Lord that could have honestly made me a better ball player. But in the same way that there were so many things that I was learning from playing baseball that would have made me a better person all around. And it wasn't until I was done playing that I finally started understanding these ideas or these principles a little bit better. So my hope is that somebody's watching and you're going through something in your life, or there's things that you just find joy in your life, and you're like, they don't really correlate, but that there's truly are places where they intersect, and it's inside of those places that intersect that you're going to see the most growth inside of your life. So, well, I don't know who that was for. We're going to unpack sports a little bit more, and I want to talk about the role of church inside of sports, or like fitness ministries, actual church gatherings, right? And like, what effect does competition have on your character? And then maybe a little bit of my testimony, where I'll share of how what I didn't realize was going to be baseball kind of pushing me into who I was meant to be. So I want to share with you guys what I want to call the ACE method. And this is not just something that I want to live by, but it's something that I want to mark the dying breed in the channel, especially as we're looking to build consistency and grow. I want maybe somebody here, this is something that you can apply to your life. So the ACE method. A is authenticity. I want to be authentic to who I am, my actual knowledge and capabilities. Like, I'm being honest enough to say I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and just because I'm sharing it doesn't mean that that's the only way or those are the only answers or that's the way. No, I just want to share maybe my perspective, my point of view, and how I've received it, how I've taken it in, and just give it back, because I believe that in conversation, right, and maybe this will inspire somebody else to share, and you have the key to somebody else's puzzle. So I want to be authentic to who I am and passions and things that I truly enjoy. I don't want to just create content just to get clicks, but that it would be authentic to who I am. And in the same way too, that you would, one day we're going to believe that there's people who see this channel and they're going to come to the church, and or that I might get to meet one day, and you would not just see somebody on camera that's one way, but that you would come and you'd be like, wow, like, this is the same person, that this is just truly who I am. The next one is convictions. I want to allow my convictions to be what drives this. Not that I'm just chasing controversy or I'm chasing clicks. Like, these are just topics and things that are really festering inside of me that I want to share, that I want to speak about, that I want to put out there. If you have dinner or you're around me enough, I love to ask questions, and I love to get insight, and I love to hear different perspectives. And oftentimes we could be sitting in a space and I might agree with you 100%, but sometimes, right, I'll ask or I'll take it from a different way just to see where we can go with the conversation. And that's just kind of who I am. So you're going to see me do a lot of that on here, where I'm just going to ask questions, I'm going to propose things, I'm going to just say things, we're going to just share. And like I said, we're going to be true to who we are. We're going to be uncommon, unshaken, and unapologetic with that. So I just want to allow my convictions to lead, and that I'm not just chasing this content, that I want it to be things that I'm truly like passionate about, that I really do want to share. And I do hope that these are things that blesses somebody's life. If there's other young individuals or just individuals in general who are walking through life and they're like, man, like, that helped me, like, that resonated with me. And the last one is excellence. I want to do this with excellence, even though it's not this huge, elaborate thing. I want to still do it with excellence, because ultimately, yes, this is out there, and I'm putting this out there in the public space to benefit other people, so that maybe you can grab a hold of something. But this is also for the Lord. Like, these are things that He's imprinted on inside of me, and there are things that have came from the Holy Spirit that I just feel convictions about, and I'm like, man, I want to share these things. So if this is still going to be an act of service or a way for me to share the good news, then I want to do it with excellence. And I want to do all things in my life with excellence, right? Because we know that excellence honors God and it inspires people. And that's something that my pastor taught me, was that right there. And that truly has become the mark of a lot of my life, that I want to do things with excellence, because God deserves excellence. God deserves our best, not our leftovers. So I'm hoping that maybe you can adopt the ACE method, or you can find a place where you can apply the ACE method or share the ACE method with someone else. And then it's just authentic, or authenticity, conviction, and excellence. Something so simple, but can be so profound in somebody's life. So back to, we were talking about sports. Talking about sports, man. Sports are just an interesting thing, because they're a beautiful place of gathering. They're a place where people from all different kinds of life, all different walks of life could come together. I look at the World Cup is going on right now, and just seeing all of these people who are coming together from all over the world to come support their country. We think of what happened with the New York Knicks just not too long ago, and the way the city kind of came together, and there was a lot of chaos that kind of occurred out of it, but you saw people come together because of sports. Sports is like a great gatherer of people, and churches often use it. I know, being that I had a sports background, I love using sports to bring together youth and different individuals. We do a turkey bowl every Christmas, every Thanksgiving time, where we gather, we play some flag football. We've done basketball events, and actually majority of the missions trips we go on, there's always some sort of sports component that we incorporate to gather individuals. Sports can be an amazing tool to bring people together. My first ever missions trip was actually a baseball missions trip. So I saw the effects of what sports can do. And my fear, though, is that sports have become an idol to so many people. Like, they'd rather celebrate the sport and the people in the sports, and they idolize the individuals, and they put them at a higher place than God. Like, they want to see their lives be shifted and transformed by the will of somebody with letters on their back, rather than trusting who the Lord is and what the Lord has for them. And we've kind of seen this where there's like an idolistic, I don't even know if that's a word, but idolistic culture that's being brought up around sports. Like, these people are being celebrated like they're deities, like these individuals, and they're not bad people. I'm not saying that they are, but I'm just saying, like, we as a people have put them in such a high place and such a high that we forget, like, who's still seated on the throne. We forget who the actual King of Kings is and the Lord of Lords. Like, we forgot that. And it makes me sad, because you can gather people for sports, but man, you can't gather people to even for a prayer night. So I identified that at a younger age, and I identified that early into my time as a leader, mainly because, one, I was blessed that a mentor of mine, he took me on a missions trip to the Dominican Republic, where I got to see faith and sports intertwined, and they do amazing work where they actually have a baseball Bible, and it's inside of that baseball Bible they give practical tips of baseball, one, but then they also ask professional athletes not only to share that tip, but then also to put their favorite Bible verse in there. And I found it to be a very beneficial tool, because kids can go in there and they're looking for the person that they idolize, but then they also find the scriptures, and then it turns into, wait, but what Bible verse is this person like, and what Bible verse is this person like? And you start to see the kid go through it. And that was kind of my story. I found my connection through that baseball Bible, where that baseball Bible is what kind of shifted things for me, because I was living these two separate lives, where I thought that there was this person who was here, who went to school, who had these friends, but then there was this person who wanted to figure out how to love the Lord, wanted to live this way, and I never thought that they could actually be together at one until I went on that missions trip. And it was actually in that missions trip that I believe is what birthed a lot of what I do today. I say that because every missions trip, like I mentioned, we try to do some sort of sports component. But then I also still do that here at home, where I've understood how when you pair sports with your faith, you can actually gather people for a moment, but then help lead them with curiosity to something even greater. Because that's always what I want to do with some of these things, because you don't ever know. One, you don't ever want to force people. My job is not to convince people, but if I can create a little bit of curiosity, then that young individual, that individual who came and played with us, would then go out and search for it themselves. So what I've noticed is how powerful sports can be, but if it's not taken care of, if it's not done with diligence, if it's not taken one serious, it can lead to actually something even worse. Why do I say that? It's because a lot of times there are churches that have sports ministries, or they play on different like flag football teams, or they have like places where they go out and they play sports. What I've noticed is competition compromises character. And there's like a fine line between competing, where then it becomes compromise. And I think that's sometimes where the church is messed up. Is because we put people in this space and we want them to just go have fun, and we do it in the name of the Lord, and we're just playing a game, and that everybody should just have that understanding. But then what happens is we get so caught up in the game, and then we forget who we're actually representing. And what ends up happening is the inverse effect, where they say, aren't these the church people? Oh, look at them now. They're good enough when they're in their building, but when they step outside, look at who they are. And it could be something as simple as a moment. And for me, that's the biggest part that makes me sad, because it could be such a valuable tool. Like if churches and like communities could gather around sports and figure out how to marry the two of your faith and your sports together, we would see so much transition and change. I love what some of the different Savannah Bananas are doing. I don't know the exact name of it, but it's like a Sandlot revival that they kind of do before there are different events. I think it's beautiful. We're seeing colleges and different athletes and different professional teams where a lot of their warm-up stuff is like simple symbolic measures where they're saying like Jesus won, and they're kind of giving it to the Lord. So I love to see that, and I just wish the local church would be able to adopt those motives or those vessels and utilize them to reach not just the next generation, but to reach people, because you can easily gather people for these events, and it could be a beautiful time where, man, like it can really bridge the gap where people will be like, wow, like I can see myself being around this person. Like I can see myself there, not that they have this painted image of what it is to go to church or what it is to be a part of a fellowship or what it is to follow God. I think there's a lot of misconceptions where people think like, man, I don't want to go to church because I don't want to look lame. I don't want to look less than. I don't want to like be a stiff. I don't want to do any of those things. And that's not what it is. That's not what it's about at all. Like you could still be a follower of Christ and have fun. You could still be a follower of Christ and still compete at a high level in sports. You could still be a follower of Christ and do what you love. Follow your passions, chase your dreams. You can still do all those things. It's just learning how. It's learning how you can go from, right, A to B and not compromise yourself on the way. A few times I've mentioned mission trips, my testimony, and how they kind of coincide. So let's break this down very, very briefly. One, I used to play baseball. I was okay. I wasn't that special. But what ended up happening is I didn't follow and I didn't listen when people try to give me advice. And what ended up happening is I tear my ACL, my MCL, and my meniscus. And immediately, I identified the problem inside my life is that my identity was found inside of baseball. Right there. Because the moment I stopped playing, people stopped talking to me. People started treating me different. And I felt like I, myself, had died. But there was nothing more to who I was because it was so closely linked to who I thought the entirety of who I was baseball. My mentor, he was actually my private coach, takes me to the Dominican Republic where we go on this missions trip, where we serve with, not just serve these young boys, but we are working with them, doing baseball clinics, and we are spending time, honestly, just loving on them. We got to spend time to go to a village in the middle of a sugarcane field. And I was just so impacted. Like, it broke my heart that these young boys had so much love for me, and I couldn't even see the love I had for myself. And then how I was so stuck in a mindset where I thought that my end-all be-all was baseball, and then to see people who truly are living as their end-all be-all is baseball, it made me feel selfish. It made me feel like I was robbing things or people around me of what they truly invested into me. And that ended up becoming motivation to not only want to be a better person, but also to work even harder. Because here they are, I had gloves that I wanted, the bat that I wanted, all the, whatever I wanted to use, I had. And here they are with some of them without any gloves, without any cleats, without any of those things. And sometimes I was like, I'd be frustrated if I didn't have the cleats that I specifically wanted, or the laces weren't, it was, or the batting gloves, right? The batting gloves were black and blue and not white and blue, and like, it was just frustration with those things. And then sometimes you would allow it, or I would allow it, to affect the way I played because I'd be upset with the way things looked. And here I saw these boys out of desperation just playing because they loved it. And how humble they were and how nice they were and just how loving that they were. It caught me off guard because then afterwards we got to do a devotional with them, spend time with them, talking to them. And after every one of our clinics, they asked a different leader to share with the boys, inspire them. And one day they asked me to share. And I was like, well, I don't have anything to share. I don't feel like I have anything to give. And he just said, pray about it. And I believe you can do it. So I go and I begin to share about how this got me to that moment. And I opened up honestly to say that I was filled with pride, arrogance, feeling like I was better than what I actually was, that I was better than people, that I was more than other people, that I was of higher value than other people, simply because I could hold and play a game. And how experiencing what I experienced in the Dominican Republic changed my life. And I began to share a little bit about who I was. And for the first moment, I realized the impact of sharing your testimony. Because of that day, I don't remember, it was like a few dozen boys and they're giving their life to Christ. And I couldn't fathom and I could not understand what happened. And it would mark me and it would leave me in a place of confusion because I couldn't understand what was I actually living for. What would go on to happen is I have this anchoring feeling that I'm meant to do mission trips, that I'm meant to do missions, that I'm meant to do this. And I didn't know how it was going to be possible because I was still injured. And I thought that if I went and played professional baseball, then that was how I was going to be able to go on mission trips, that I was going to be able to do this full time, and that I was going to be able to help lead other people on a mission trip because I finally have enough money to go on mission trips. And I kind of tried to push my agenda on a godly thing and ask God to partner with it. And I'm imagining God was there looking down and he's like, my son, that's not the only way. I was blessed enough to say that I was able to train, work hard, and be able to make a comeback and play in some showcases and sign to a small college up in Minnesota. And it was beautiful. I felt like I was at the top of the world. But in the same way, I felt empty. Because, yeah, I had achieved what I wanted, but then I was still missing the calling from the Lord. After I come back home from school, still feeling, this confusion, this upset. I was just, the Lord had put on me, it was very simple, and it was, do you know your worth? And I kept telling myself, well, if you make it to play professional baseball, then you can do this. And I kind of, every time I spoke about being able to do mission trips, it was always with that small piece added to it. If I can play professionally, then I can do this. If I can make it to this level, then I can do this. We go, and later that year I'm playing. She was my girlfriend at the time, but now my wife. We were in Orlando, and there is something called Icon Park. Inside of Icon Park, there's an area where there's an arcade. There is an aquarium, and I believe it's an escape room. I don't really remember fully. But we're walking around the area, we're just checking it out, and we find ourselves in this back, there's like a little hallway, and this hallway had pictures of kids' faces. And I was like, what even is that? So I kind of peeked down the hallway, and we're looking at it, and we're like, okay, it's kind of weird to be here. Why would that even be here? That doesn't even make sense to be here. So as we're walking back and walking away, this couple walks up to us and they were like, do you know who Jesus is? And we were kind of like, yeah, we know who he is. We tried to give like the good answer. Oh, my family, runs a church, and like trying to give the right answers. And they had no clue who we are. They didn't even ask our names. They just looked, and he's like, the Lord told us that we were going to find a couple here right now. We're like, okay. A lot of times I'm like, is that real, or are they just saying that just to start the conversation? And they're like, we just want to pray over you guys. I was like, oh, okay, cool. You guys can pray for us. And they began to pray. And they also began to prophesy. And this couple would look at us and he says, you're meant to go share God's word to the nations. And you're meant to go and reach them. And he begins to prophesy all these things. They prophesied this beautiful message over my wife. And they finish, they say amen, and they just walk away. And we look at each other, and by the time we look back, there was nobody there, and we're kind of just sitting in the middle of this arcade, like, what just happened? So we leave, and we just start walking back to where our hotel was, and we're like, what is going on here? Like, what was that? We both identified it to be something from the Lord, because we felt something we had never felt before. And I would say not even 2 weeks later, we go back to the church, and we're there. We get there a little early for what their team huddles were, and the pastor goes on and he says that we need a couple to sign up. We need somebody to sign up who wants to do missions, as there's a missions organization that wants to start their missions arm here in our campus. And I was like, wow, okay. This just got real interesting. So what we do is we just submit our names, and immediately the first thing we do is we try to abort what God was trying to birth. Immediately, that's the first thing we do. We submit our names, and the first conversation we have, they're not gonna pick us. We're not active in the church. We just kind of come in and out. We don't serve really. We're just around. We're too young. We just start laying on every reason why we should not be chosen. Time goes by and we don't hear anything, so we're just kind of like, okay, see, we were right. We weren't meant for this. None of that was real. And we get pulled into the office, and the pastor tells us, hey, you guys are the only ones who submitted your names. So get ready. And we were shocked. And it was in that moment that I was like, I've got to let everything go. I've got to let everything go, because for a moment I was holding so tightly to a sport because I thought that that's what I was supposed to be using, and God was revealing to me that the sport is what I'm going to be using to reach people. It wasn't the sport that I was going to use to get to a certain level, then reach people. No, because that first trip we begin to plan and we begin to talk, and we do a soccer outreach in Peru that next year. This happens. That was anywhere between September to November. I ended up playing in my last weekend of baseball. That November, I finished playing at a winter league. From there, we get named missions directors that January. Our first missions trips ends up being July to Peru, where we do a small soccer outreach field day. We go to Honduras at the end of the year, where we get to introduce baseball to kids for the first time. I believe that we went to 2 different towns, shared with them baseball, and out of both towns, only one kid knew what baseball was. And I realized in that moment what God was doing in a year's time. And in the midst of all that, I submitted to the Lord, and He began to move. And this is something that's even crazier, because as this is all happening, we're talking, I finished playing in November, was my last weekend playing, to January we're missions directors, and it was 6 months in, I become the youth pastor of the church. It all started happening that fast. Working through different things, just trusting the Lord, being obedient, because I had so much free time now that all the time that I was putting into training, working hard and doing all those things, I started applying, and I started getting in my word, trusting the Lord and building myself up, that everything started shifting so fast. And a pastor who revealed this to us now, and it was confirmed through a few others, marked us, and she said the name of who you guys are and the ministry of what the Lord is doing through your lives is elevated and accelerated. And I was like, didn't see it until I started looking back. I was like, the Lord has been doing that to us this entire time. So sports and missions trips in my story are all intertwined into one. Now, us now as lead pastors of our own church, well, what does that look like? Well, I have two gentlemen who come to the house and we work out together. So that's where we start. And we're building them up. One of those gentlemen is actually working to become the assistant pastor of our church, and the other one is a young leader of our church. And I'm using working out and the principles that I've learned from working out of pushing yourself, and essentially for me, what it felt like crucifying my flesh, I kind of equate to how your muscles are slightly torn every time you work out and they're built back into something better. With that too, we want to do more sports outreaches. We're going to be in Peru this summer, and we're going to do soccer. We're going to do different sports outreaches to reach the community, but as well as not just overseas, but in the lost mission field, which that's going to be a whole other topic for another day, the lost mission field of our backyard. Because there are so many things that we as a local church could be doing to be in the community that I'm excited for, that we want to be a part of, but that I believe that we need to shed some light on too. Because we want to go on missions trips, we want to push ourselves to go on these short-term trips, and everybody wants to go on a missions trip, but they forget that the moment you walk out of the church on a Sunday, the missions trip has begun. And we kind of forget that. So we want to incorporate that sports ministry into the lost mission field, which is our backyard. That we could literally be living a mission every single day. So sports, my faith, how they intertwine and how they meet. Well, I hope even if you didn't play sports, there's something from your life, whether it's art, there's different knitting principles that I'm sure we could elaborate on, but there's just something in your life that you've been interested in or that you've been blessed enough to participate in that you could learn from. And I'm believing that, and I'm hoping that you would look back into your life and look back, or maybe at things that you're still passionate about, and ask the Lord, like, what is there to learn from this? And then how could I use it for the kingdom? Just using it for the kingdom. And let's just see what happens. I shared with you guys the ACE method, a little bit of my testimony. There's a lot more to it, but just a brief outline of it. We're going to trust. My prayer with this is that, one, if one person watches the video, hears the video, and they choose to open up a Bible or seek the Lord again for the first time, then I've done enough. Second, that as we get fishing, adventure videos, mission trip videos rolled out, that somebody's going to click on this video because they're going to want to watch something I'm doing with fishing or something with outdoors or a trail talk or some of the different things that we're going to be working on. But then it would lead to maybe watching a mission trip video, and then it would turn into them maybe listening to a conversation like this where we just open up some different things of my testimony, my life, or other people's lives, and then it would turn into them opening up the Word. And that's the goal, is that every part of our life could be a tool to advance the kingdom. And that's what it should be about, is that we are using what God has freely given us to do His work, share His love. And I said it briefly in another video, but what I want this channel to be is helping or showing people what following Jesus beyond the four walls looks like. Because it's easy on a Sunday, it's easy on a Wednesday, it's easy, right, when you have your rehearsal or you're in your discipleship on this day, your discipleship on this day. It's easy during those moments, but it's difficult when it's not the traditional church setting. So for us, it's sports, but for you, it could be art. It could be dancing. It could be, who knows? But you know. So tap in, seek the Lord, see where He takes you. And tap into the ACE method. Be authentic. Let your convictions lead. and be excellent. Because it honors God and inspires people. God bless you.